Over these past few weeks, I've been enjoying myself quite a lot, I have to say, reading some very inoffensive, just pure-hearted, fun comics in form of Asterix, catching up on some of the volumes that I haven't read before, and getting comfortable with the English version, which is slightly different than what I remember, and also playing some games that I haven't touched in years. Currently, it's a heavily modded Baldur's Gate 2, which came right after the playthrough of Neverwinter Nights, and it seems like even though I still do consume a unhealthy amount of content that focuses on stuff that I don't like, I don't agree with, um, me going out of my way to find things and remember things that I genuinely just enjoyed seems to have a positive enough effect. So that means it's working at least in one way, one portion of what I wanted to achieve by making these recordings. And I'm also seeing an improvement, not as much as a direct just jump in my English level, but a different approach that I'm taking to focusing on specific areas that need the improvement, that need me to specifically challenge them in some ways. And also the fact that I'm slowly getting used to actually talk out loud in English, which was something that I haven't really been doing for a very long time. I've mentioned this previously. So, all in all, this has definitely been a positive venture so far. So, I'm happy that I'm still able and more than willing to just sit down and record a short video just for pretty much myself, and then I can just spend those 2 minutes it takes to upload it as well, just to see, maybe just to have it online as well in case I somehow need it. And now it's again time for some Asterix. This time one I remember again a bit more fondly, even more than the previous one. I remember reading this one as a very small child, and then repeatedly, even when I grew slightly older, not in the past few years, but more than some of the others, and that's Asterix and the Gladiator, which begins with a high rank, high ranked Roman official visiting one of Roman encampments surrounding our now familiar village in search of a gift for Caesar, and he wants to give him one of the invincible gauls that are still being a thorn in the side of the Roman Empire. But unfortunately for him and the legionnaires stationed there, they are, well, very powerful, so it's almost impossible to just capture them. Fortunately for this official, not all of them are combat ready, and There is the Bard. In my language, he was called Trubadix, which basically means Bard X. In the English version, he is called Cacophonix because from the word cacophony, since his singing is so terrible that it can cause actual the hemorrhage and damage to whoever listens to it, even to the allies and those that consumed the strengthening potion. It's that potent, but that's not something the Romans know, and so they proceed with the plan to capture him and then offer him as a gladiator to the Caesar. At first, these attempts are thwarted by the bard singing, but they are able to counter this by plugging their ears, and they are successful. Then the Gauls learn about it, they attack the Roman encampment, but unfortunately find out that the prefect already left for Rome. So now they have to follow the Bard to Rome in an attempt to rescue him, even though they are not exactly thrilled by the idea of him returning back to the village. Meanwhile, the poor sailors that are accompanying the captured bard are subjected to his horrible singing, and they are quite pleased with the fact that he finally leaves with the prefect. He then proceeds to gift the goal to the Caesar, but unfortunately the trainer decides that the bard is completely inept and can't really be a gladiator. So in the end, Caesar decides to just throw him to the lions in the Circus Maximus. When the Gauls reach Rome, they attempt to rescue the bard by themselves, but unfortunately fail to do so because he isn't where they thought he will be, and thus they have to improvise by volunteering to be gladiators and use that opportunity to meet with their fellow villager. When the day of the games finally comes, there is a race first, then the bard is thrown to the lions, but he thinks he is in front of a huge audience that came to appreciate his singing because unfortunately he is unaware of the effect that it has on everyone that's subjected to it. So he starts singing, and even the poor lions are forced to retreat. Then the disgusted Caesar orders the gladiators to start fighting, but unfortunately for him and for the audience, the gladiators are unwilling to fight to the death and just start playing games, and it results in Asterix and Obelix fighting one of the legions, which they defeat easily, but it results in the happiness of the audience, which makes Caesar release the Gauls and send them back. What was noteworthy and something that I remember to this day, that both Obelix said his famous phrase he uses throughout the series, that the Romans are crazy, and it usually has some permutations regarding other groups introduced in the story, and also their run-ins with the pirates, whom they meet quite often during their travels outside of the village, and they usually end up sinking the poor pirate's ship, which again turned into something of a running gag. I have to say that I really enjoy this just pure light-hearted fun that Asterix offers, even though the authors themselves sometimes admit it to some underlying currents underneath their story. Still, as a child, it wasn't exactly obvious on the nose, and it remained that way even to this day. So, in some cases, without actually knowing what was going on, I wouldn't have been able to tell myself, which I find refreshing. And again, Asterix is one of those stories, one of those books that just make me not think about anything outside of the current story, the current volume that I'm holding or reading on computer. And that's definitely something that I've been missing in my life for the past few years. Even just the color scheme is very positive. The colors are very cheerful, inoffensive, and the characters are mostly portrayed in a very comical sense. Nothing actually serious happens, and even things that could be taken quite seriously are portrayed in an innocent kind of way. One last thing I wanted to mention is that I have noticed that I tend to swallow the last syllables of some words, and it's definitely something that I have to be very careful of. It may sound like I am just meshing words together, which is something that I really wanted to avoid while going into these recordings. I am well aware that happening, and I'm definitely going to try my best to combat this forming bad habit.